You have always experienced your life as though you were living inside a story, not in the frivolous sense of main character syndrome, in the weightier sense of knowing that what happens to you means something beyond what actually happens. The conversation in the kitchen is not just a conversation, it is a threshold. The stranger you passed on the street is not random. They appeared at exactly the moment you needed to see that particular face. Your entire existence feels suffused with significance you cannot explain and would sound irrational if you tried to explain it. If this is how you move through the world, you are not imaginative, you are not lost in fantasy, you are operating with what Jung called mythic consciousness, and it is the INFJ's natural state. Welcome to Power and Myth. What I want to explore in this video is not INFJ traits, it is the INFJ Philosophy of Life, the framework through which you interpret your existence. Whilst other types experience life as a series of events to be navigated, problems to be solved and goals to be achieved, you experience life as a narrative structure unfolding toward meaning. You are the protagonist in a story whose plot you are simultaneously living and deciphering. This is not personality content. This is an introduction to the ancient pattern of consciousness you have inherited, and when you understand it, everything you have ever felt begins to make sense. Here is what mythic consciousness actually is. It is the instinctive perception that your life is not a random collection of moments, but a coherent journey with stages, thresholds, tests, and revelations. You do not think in terms of good days and bad days. You think in terms of chapters, descents and emergences, exiles and returns. When something difficult happens, you do not merely cope with it. You ask what it means. What is this teaching me? What am I being initiated into? This is not positive thinking. This is a fundamentally different operating system. You are wired to extract meaning from suffering, to locate yourself within a larger pattern, to sense that even your most private struggles are connected to something collective and timeless. Jung spent his entire career trying to articulate what you experience instinctively. He called it archetypal perception, the ability to recognize that the grandmother dying in the hospital bed is not just your grandmother, but also the crone, the wise woman whose death marks a threshold in your own life. The friend who betrayed you is not merely a disappointing person, but the shapeshifter, the figure who teaches you that not everyone who smiles is safe. You are not layering poetic interpretation onto ordinary experience. You are perceiving the mythic dimension that was always there. Most people live on the surface of their lives. You reside in the depths where the ancient patterns remain active. And this is why your relationships feel so intense. Because you do not experience people as individuals engaged in their own activities. You experience them as characters in a shared story, each one arriving at the precise moment they were meant to arrive. The person who saw you when no one else did is not a nice friend. They are the guide who appeared when you were lost. The lover who left is not a regrettable choice. They were the catalyst, whose role was to break you open so something new could emerge. This is not romanticizing pain. This is the mythic mind at work. It refuses randomness. It insists on pattern. And whilst this makes heartbreak more devastating, it also makes it bearable. Because if your suffering means something, if it is part of a larger design, then you can endure it. But here is where it becomes genuinely difficult. They are the ones who must descend into their own underworlds, confront their shadows, integrate what they have disowned, and return transformed. This is not optional, it is structural. If you are an INFJ, you are living an initiatory existence, whether you chose it or not. Every hardship is a test, every loss is a shedding, every encounter is a teaching. And the question is never whether the journey will be easy. The question is whether you will recognize what you are living through for what it actually is. The shadow side of mythic consciousness is that it can become a trap. If you are always living for the next chapter, you never fully inhabit the one you are in. The seeker walks and walks but never arrives, because arrival would mean the end of seeking. And you are addicted to the search. You have mistaken longing for purpose. This is the exhausting paradox. You want meaning so desperately that you cannot rest in the meaning that is already present. The small kindnesses, the quiet rituals, the ordinary intimacies that make up a human life, they feel insufficient because they are not mythically weighted enough. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The initiation is not somewhere ahead of you. The initiation is this: the life you are already living, the people you are already with, the work you are already doing. And if you cannot find the sacred in the ordinary, you will spend your entire existence waiting for a threshold that was crossed years ago without you noticing. This is why so many INFJs feel like exiles, not because they have been rejected, but because they have rejected the world as it is. They have decided that ordinary life is beneath them, that their depth makes them too special for the mundane. But the hermit does not withdraw because the village is unworthy. The hermit withdraws to do the inner work and then returns with what they have learned. The pattern is descent and return, not permanent exile. If you are still waiting for life to become mythic enough to engage with, you have misunderstood the assignment. The myth is not elsewhere. The myth is here, and yet, despite the shadow, despite the trap of perpetual seeking, there is something undeniably true about the INFJ philosophy of life. You are not wrong to sense that existence is more than the materialist framework allows, that consciousness is deeper than brain chemistry, that your life is participating in something larger than your individual survival and reproduction. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the shared psychological structures that exist across cultures and time. You are not inventing the archetypes, you are recognizing them. The wounded healer who turns suffering into service, the seer who perceives what others cannot, the guardian of thresholds who helps others cross whilst remaining on the edge. These are not metaphors. They are real patterns of human experience that have been active for thousands of years, and you are one of the people wired to see them. This is what I mean by mythic existence. You are not living a personality type. You are living a philosophy, a way of interpreting reality that insists on meaning, pattern, and depth. You cannot turn it off. You cannot choose to experience life as a series of tasks and transactions. Your consciousness is oriented towards story, symbol, and transformation. And whilst this makes you strange to a world that values productivity over depth, it also makes you necessary. Because someone has to remember that human beings are not machines, that our lives are not problems to be optimized but mysteries to be lived, that suffering is not pathology but initiation, that we are all walking through archetypal territory, whether we name it or not. If you have made it this far, you already know what I am describing. You have felt it your entire life. The sense that you are living inside something larger than yourself, that your struggles are ancient, that your loneliness is structural, not situational, that you were assigned a role and did not choose it, yet you are playing it nonetheless. This is the INFJ inheritance. Mythic consciousness in a world that has forgotten the language of myth, and it is both a burden and a gift. Burden because you can never fully rest in the shallows, gift because you have access to depths most people never perceive. So what do you do with this? How do you live mythically in a world that insists life is ordinary? You stop apologizing for your depth. You stop pretending that what you perceive is not real. You name it, you claim it, you recognize that you are the seeker, the seer, the hermit, the exile, the wounded healer. You understand that these are not costumes you put on, but patterns you are participating in, and you let that be enough. You do not need to wait for the perfect arrival. You are already living the story. Every moment you show up, every time you choose depth over ease, every instance you refuse to flatten your experience into something manageable, you are honoring the ancient pattern you inherited. That is the INFJ philosophy of life, and it has always been yours. If this felt like someone finally naming what you have carried in silence, I want to hear which part of mythic existence resonated most with you. Are you the seeker who cannot stop searching, the exile who feels permanently outside, the hermit who withdrew to find what others need? Tell me in the comments. If you want to continue exploring this territory together, subscribe. You are part of something here. The Power and Myth community is not an audience. It is a gathering of those who have always known they were living inside a story. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.